Hello and welcome to Adam's Music Box, where I'm pretty damn shocked today because all of the news is reporting that Ozzy Osbourne has sadly died at the age of 76. And the reason this is so surreal, I guess is the word, is that just a few weeks ago on the 5th of July, Ozzy performed his final ever performance, but it was scheduled that way. That's how it was promoted and meant to be, even though that phrase has rather a different meaning today. But he did at the end of this huge festival where all of the great luminaries of hard rock and heavy metal performed both Ozzy and Sabbath songs. The concert concluded with a set from Ozzy and his longtime solo band. And of course, the grand finale was a reunion of the original Black Sabbath lineup where it all began. We had known for a while that he was ill with Parkinson's. He had a big fall a few years ago. He had other problems, but he performed, especially with all things considered, amazingly, I thought, at the final performance. His band, of course, were in a tip-top shape, and Black Sabbath, while they hadn't played together as the original lineup in decades, I thought they sounded absolutely great. They did four songs, but it was enough. We everyone wished it could have been, a full length gig of Ozzy and Sabbath, but even in that short period of time, they made their statement. They performed brilliantly, and it all just came together, and it was the perfect goodbye. But we thought it was a professional goodbye, a goodbye into retirement, but no one, certainly not me, was expecting this terrible news so shortly thereafter. But I want to try to put an admittedly positive spin on this because it was the organizer of the concert called Back to the Beginning, Tom Morello of he best known for his work with Rage Against the Machine. He said that with so many tribute acts, they only happen once someone dies. There was the huge Freddie Mercury tribute concert after he died of AIDS. There was the Taylor Hawkins concerts after he died of, still, I don't think we fully know. He very young guy comparatively, and there have been, many others like that. But with Ozzy, he got to have his goodbye while he was still there. And I guess when you sort of, if you want to look at it in both an ironic or macabre way that I suppose Ozzy would appreciate, he sort of attended, he's the first musician to ever attend his musical funeral. There was just a few weeks gap between the event and his sad death, but at least he got to see how much he was loved by fans, not just in the stadium, but by the people watching the clips all over the world. And there were millions and millions of people who watched throughout the world and commented on it. Most people thought that even though he wasn't really able to walk, he did the show seated down. He looked good, and yeah, he had makeup on, and there were some backstage pictures of him without the makeup, and he definitely didn't look, like a healthy young man, but, no one thought that, at least no one in public thought that the end was that near. I mean, so many weird ironies, so many weird, just weirdness to the whole situation. What if they scheduled the concert for the 5th of August rather than the 5th of July? Did the adrenaline and enthusiasm of wanting to say goodbye to his fans keep him alive? Was it part of God's plan? Who knows? Because he was a man of faith, even though he expressed himself in what some might call non-traditional manners. But when it all comes down to it, I think he's a story of hope. He was born into a life where he wasn't supposed to go anywhere. He was from the background where people looked at you and thought, why are you even here? And he, along with Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler and Bill Ward, they invented a prolific genre of music, one of the defining genres of the second half of the 20th century. Call it heavy metal, as some might say, call it a new incarnation of hard rock, but it was a style of music, a style of singing, a style of lyrics, a style of writing that really began with Black Sabbath. Other people had rocked hard. Vanilla Fudge did it with soul. Deep Purple, very influenced by Vanilla Fudge. The Who did it, but in a much, much different way. They were loud, but they were not dark. Zeppelin were, they were more the castle walls than the castle dungeon, which is where Black Sabbath's music sort of took you. But the music wasn't all Dungeons and Dragons. There was commentary about the world, about war, about politics. There were love songs. There were songs about loss. Never let anyone tell you that Ozzy was a one-dimensional performer or writer, because there were many different aspects to his career. And in his career, he played with great musicians, some of them touched by tragedy, like the great Randy Rhoads, who I guess that long awaited reunion has now happened. But again, I think the biggest shock of the whole thing is that we all said goodbye to him on a professional level, and that was expected. That was planned for almost a year. But now to say goodbye to him from a totally unexpected position, we all knew that the end was closer than the beginning, but I just don't think that we knew how close. Maybe his family did. I don't know, but getting back to the story of Ozzy's resilience, when various substance problems got him kicked out of Black Sabbath at the end of the 70s, people had wrote him off. People thought he was finished. Black Sabbath eventually moved on with another great singer, Ronnie James Dio, also sadly gone. But people thought that Ozzy himself would never recover. But his wife got him back on that horse, and with a new band, like I said, driven by Randy Rose. Don Airey was there, great Lee Kerslake, just such a great band. And he showed the world that, yes, rock and roll gives you a second chance. Heavy metal gives you a second opportunity. And the hits just kept on coming. The fast, the slow, just every album that he made was either great or really great. And some were legends of the genre. If you thought, well, you couldn't really, create classics of a genre twice in your career, Ozzy proved them wrong. He created, the great metal songbook of music with Sabbath, and he did it again with his long running solo career. Um, and it's, thank God that the reunion happened and that the farewell happened when it did. And again, there's something ironic that the Prince of Darkness himself not only attended his own funeral in a metaphorical sense, but he performed at it and he brought the house down. Finally, there was the aspect of Ozzy's career that I think no one expected, and that was the reality star treatment. Now, I'm sure that the networks, when they were producing and pitching the shows, thought, let's make a silly show about a dysfunctional heavy metal family. But what it actually showed is that families aren't all that different, even if some are famous rock stars and some aren't. But I think what it also showed is the human. He was a good dad. He was a husband who was a good husband and always tried his best. The flaws of the family were very out in the open. Everyone was honest about it. But I think it was the compassion, it was the love, it was the growing pains, and it was the normality or the normalcy, if you really want to use the correct term, of the whole thing that helped to sort of humanize a man who was dehumanized since his birth. Forget because of the sort of imagery around Black Sabbath. He was dehumanized because he was born, like I said, into a situation where, why are you alive? What are you doing here? And now we get to see, or we got to see this man as, a father figure, doing what he needs to do while doing his work as an entertainer and a musician. And it just goes to show you there were sort of three lives of Ozzy: inventing heavy metal with Black Sabbath, his resurrection as a solo artist, and his unexpected career as a kind of, the dad that the late 90s and early 21st century didn't know television and later on the internet needed. So my condolences to the family that because of that we all got to know. And it's a sad day, but remember him as the legend that he was. He invented something, and invention is not an easy thing to do. I guess today we're all coming home. Rest in peace, Ozzy.